Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Erev Yom Kippur. So here we are, literally at the throes of Yom Kippur, trying to figure out what we can do to be just a little bit better, something new, something a little different. And I appreciate the invitation coming to this beautiful shul, Eish Kodesh. Everybody knows it all over the country, wherever you go. You tell people you live in Woodmere, and they tell you, "Oh, you know Eish Kodesh." So it's a great place. First, I wanted to start off and tell you something that, when we began the month of Elul, so everyone always has all the great Roshei Tevis for Anila Dodi V'Dodi Li. They have all the different kind of things. But Spiegel once told me something a little different. It's in a place that most people don't really think you're going to get a Roshei Tevis, but it happens to be beautiful. It happens to be in the Bracha of Asher Yotza. Because in the Bracha of Asher Yotza, we say all the time, Efsha l'skayim v'lamod l'fanecha. The whole year, it's impossible to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's in Shemayim. We have to reach up to him, reach up to the heavens. But when Elul comes, when we start to get into this season, it's Efsha l'skayim v'lamod l'fanecha. Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed, Elul. Now it's easy to get close to God because he comes down to us. We're not reaching up to him, he comes down to us. So that's kind of an idea of what Elul is all about. So what I want to do in the time we have is talk a little bit about a journey that that I embarked upon. Just like all of you, when you study your Parsha every week, you read something, and every single week it has something new, something different. You're trying to figure out, what is it? It says, Hafochbo, the Kulobo, turn it over, you'll find new things. And that's exactly what happened to me when I was reading the story in the Torah in Parshas Ki Teitzei of a mitzvah which is called the Kan Sipar. I'm sure all of you probably know about it. I'll read it very quickly from the Torah. It's only 2 psukim, that's all it is. It says, Ki yikarei kan tzipor l'fanecha baderech, b'chol eitz o ala aretz efrochim ha'beitzim v'ha'im raveses ala efrochim o ha'beitzim lo tichach ha'im ala bonim, shalech teshalech es ha'im v'sabonim tichach lach, l'man yitav lach v'arach liyamim. So it says, one day you're walking and you look up or you look down, you see a bird hovering over its nest with its chicks or the eggs, and the Torah tells you, you know what, send away the mother bird. Because if you want those little chicks for yourself, it's really not right. It's not rachamim. It's not what we call rachamim. Send away the mother bird so the mother bird doesn't get disturbed by this, and then you can then keep shalech to shalech. You can then keep the little birds for yourself, the chicks for yourself. And if you do that, the Torah tells you, guess what? You know what the reward is? L'man yitav lach v'arachti yamim. Your days are going to be lengthened. You're going to have a great life. Okay, now let's try to be honest with ourselves, okay? Who really understood this mitzvah? It's a very esoteric mitzvah for many, many reasons. First of all, I think that when you think about the Torah and you think of the fact that we have 613 mitzvahs, right? So if it turned out that we never had this commandment, do you think your life would be so different? Okay, Shabbos, Yontiv, Kashrus, all kind of things, yes, it would be different. But why did God put this pasuk in the Torah? Why did he put this mitzvah in the Torah? Kan Sipar, of all mitzvahs in the world. We never would have thought about it. And so as I started to ponder it and think about it and say to myself, why did God do this? I said to myself, there's got to be a reason. And if I can understand the reason, maybe it could give me, you see, the Torah is called a pardes. Pshat, Remish, Derush, and so there are different levels of the Torah. Maybe I could come up with an explanation. Maybe an explanation that no one ever came up with before. It's possible. And I also looked at a few things I really didn't understand at all. Why does it say ki yikarei? It happens. The Torah tells you, you can't prepare for this. Now, do you know a mitzvah in the Torah that you don't prepare for? Is everybody preparing for Yom Kippur now? You prepare for Sukkot, you prepare for Shabbos. We're always preparing. That's what we are. We're a group of people that always prepares. So why does the Torah tell you in this particular mitzvah you can't prepare for it? You cannot prepare for it. No matter what you do, you can't prepare for it. Why? That was a question I had. And so I started to ponder and think about it. just like everybody else who studies the Parsha. And eventually I came up with a very, very interesting explanation, one that was totally different than anyone else had ever come up with. Seems strange why I would come up with that, and the Balaturim never looked at it, and Rashi and the Kli Yakar, and no one ever looked at it this way. And I said, maybe what it really is like this. You see that in life, we go through life, and we do whatever we do. You're going to the supermarket, you're going shopping, you're going on a plane, you're going on a train, you're going to the kid's school, you're coming to shul, whatever you're doing, you're going through life. And all of a sudden, something happens. Ki yikareh, an opportunity comes along. An opportunity to do chesed comes along. And at that moment, you have to decide, do I take advantage of that moment, or do I just let it pass by? And if you take advantage of that moment, then maybe it's something very special. And I call those moments kansipur moments. They're kansipur moments in life. When literally you have an opportunity to do something that you didn't prepare for. It wasn't part of your daily routine. You didn't have a chance to talk to anybody about it. And if you don't take advantage of it, you know what happens? It flies away. It's gone. It's gone forever. You're never going to get it back again. And so when I started to think about this, I went to speak to many rabbis, and I said to them, I have an idea. What do you think about this idea of a new pshat of the kansipur? Because it's not just sending away the mother bird. It's taking advantage of those special, special moments in life that you could never recapture. And they all said to me, it's a very good idea. And so I said to myself, well, now that I've come up with a great idea, I wonder whether it will ever happen to me. Will I ever be in a situation to have this moment, this kansipur moment, when I wasn't prepared for it, when it came totally unexpected, and there I was, and I had to take advantage. So what I want to do this evening is talk to you. Firstly, I'm going to tell you about my first kansipur moment, because that's always the most important thing. And then I'm going to tell you, depending on how much time we have, and we'll see some different stories about people. And then because of this, by the way, I wound up writing 2 books about this. One is called Kansipur, Inspiring Stories on Seizing Magic Moments of Opportunity to do Chesed. The other one is called Life Special Moments, Inspiring Stories on Seizing Opportunities to do Chesed. All of them are true stories that actually happened either to me, or to people that I know, or to people who called me, or people I met when I spoke at a convention, or a Costa Rica cruise, or some whatever. And all these are true stories. And I was always amazed that people would tell me their stories, and then I would say to them, okay, when did this happen? When did this story happen? 30 years ago? 20 years ago? I'd say, what? You remember a story that happened 25 or 30 years ago? Yes, are you kidding? I'll never forget the story. It was one of the most magic moments of my life. And so, therefore, that's what it's all about. These stories I'm going to tell you, I call kansipur moments, and they're real stories that happened. So I'm going to start with really, the first one was my first experience. So even though Baruch Hashem, I've been blessed that I've been very, very much involved in the Jewish community in many capacities, but I also work for a living, and thank God I don't get supported by the Jewish community. I'm in business, and I've been in the healthcare business, and I've been doing many, many things in the healthcare business, including running publicly traded companies. So I have a pretty diverse background. And one of the things you do if you run a publicly traded company, you have to raise money, because you're constantly doing an offering. You're doing a secondary, you're doing a stock offering, you're doing a bond offering, whatever it is, and so on. Anyway, what happened is like this. It's a simple story. I was on a trip, and I just came back to New York from 5 or 6 days traveling and raising money for an offering that I was doing. And I came home, and the phone rings, and it's a guy named Greg Pettit. Greg Pettit is a guy who came with me. He's not Jewish. Greg Pettit came with me on all of my trips because he was my financial PR person. And he would travel with me. And he said, listen, Steve, I have a great opportunity. Something fantastic is happening. I said, Greg, I'm tired. I've been away for 5 days. I don't want to go anymore. He said, come, tomorrow we're going to Columbus, Ohio. And in Columbus, Ohio, we'll be there for an hour. We'll catch a 9 o'clock flight. We'll get there at 10, and then we'll be home by 1 o'clock. You don't have to worry. I said, okay. And we go. We go to the airport, LaGuardia Airport, a place I had been to 2,000 times, so many times. It was a normal day for me. It wasn't different than any other day. And while I'm there, it was a nasty day, raining outside and so on. I see a lady who's walking towards the United Airlines counter. She has this long garment bag, And I'm trying to understand, what does she have in that bag? And sure enough, she comes to my counter where I am. And she goes to the front and she talks to the lady who's there. And the next thing I notice is that she starts to cry. And she's really crying. And I look around at all the people who are right there, all the people on the counter, all the people around the airport, and not one person's paying attention. No one's even looking at this lady at all, zero. And I say to myself, God, it's a Wednesday. Could this be my Kansi moment on a Wednesday morning in the LaGuardia Airport? Come on, do me a favor. And so I try to ignore it, but then she kept crying. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to go over to this lady, and I'm going to find that. And I go over to her and I say, lady, not lady, I don't say lady. I go over to her and I say, can I ask you a question? I see you're upset. I see you're crying. What's the matter? She says to me, I have to tell you something. She says, this bag, this garment gift I have, I say, what's in it? She said, it's my wedding gown. My name's Mary McGuire. I'm getting married Saturday in the church I grew up in. And I asked them if I could possibly take it with me on the plane, because I know what's going to happen. If I don't go on the plane, I know it's going to get lost, or it's going to get ruined, whatever it is. She was really upset. I said, I understand. She said, but they told me I could do it, but now they said I can't do it because planes changed and so on and so forth. And so therefore, I have to check my garment bag. I said, oh, that's a pity, you know? I said, but you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry. You know why? Come on, why? It's my Kansi per moment. Come on, guys, let's get with the show. It's my Kansi per moment. If it's my Kansi per moment, I'm telling you, you're going to be okay. Anyway, I walk over to the counter, say to the lady, I said, listen, this is a terrible situation. She said, you're absolutely right. I feel terrible. This lady called. We told her she could have it on the plane, but the plane's changed, whatever it is, and so on. Therefore, we have to get her to check it. I said, listen, I have an idea. I have a great idea. She said, what? I said, how about if me, my friend Greg, and Mary, we all carry the garment bag, and we'll sit in the first row of the plane. We'll have the garment bag. We'll forego our delicious cup of coffee. And you know what? The world will be fine. Nothing's going to happen. She said, I don't know. I have to speak to the pilot. So she goes to speak to the pilot. And she speaks to the pilot, and then the pilot basically comes back and says, okay, we could do it. And so the next thing you know, she's making announcements, someone sitting in this row, please come forward. Because then everybody who was in the airport knew what was going on. They saw us, and they knew what was going on. And it was amazing what was going on, how she was talking. And then I go to my friend Greg. I said, Greg, this is a great opportunity for us because we're going to do something really good for the Jewish people. He said, great, then I want to wear a yarmulke. I said, Greg, you're not Jewish. He says, I don't care, but I want to wear a yarmulke. It's a special event. So I find that I have an extra yarmulke. I give him the yarmulke. He puts it on. Everyone goes. People board the plane. Everything is wonderful. And then it comes our turn. And so she says, okay, now you could go. So the three of us go, and we're carrying the garment bag. And we come on the plane, and everybody on the plane is applauding. The pilot gets on, and he says, congratulations to Mary McGuire on her wedding. And of course, to thank the two rabbis. Because if you're wearing the yarmulke, you're a rabbi. The two rabbis for thanking and Rabbi Pettit and Rabbi Savitsky. Wonderful. Smicha from United Airlines. Very few people have that, okay? And the plane takes off. Everything is great. We land in Columbus, Ohio. We're holding the wedding gown because we walk out in front. People are coming along and whatever it is and so on. Everyone's going, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, so nice and so on. There probably were 7 or 8 Jewish people who were on the plane. I didn't know they were Jewish. And they come over, every one of them. Rabbis, you should know how wonderful I feel today to be a Jew. I'm so proud today to be part of the Jewish people. And one lady who was waiting on the side, she finally came over. She said, listen, I want you to know that I grew up as an Orthodox Jew, but I've strayed completely. I haven't done anything Jewish in years, and I've been thinking about maybe it's time for me to do something Jewish. And I was waiting for a sign. Today, when I saw the two of you, I said to myself, I'm going to start lighting candles on Friday night. And so I said, that would be wonderful. And so she did. She left. Mary left. And I called my wife, and I said, okay. I said, I had the greatest day in Columbus, Ohio. She said, your meeting didn't start yet. I said, I know, but who cares about the meeting? I had my first Kansipur moment, because that was a Kansipur moment. What's the criteria? Was I planning on this? Absolutely not. Did I have the Yetzer Hara up and back, which is always part of the Kansipur moment? Like one part, the Yetzer Tov says, this is a nice thing to do. You should go over. And the Yetzer Hara says, what are you getting involved for? Don't get involved. Someone else will take care of it. It's not so important. You're busy. And then the third thing is, you don't have anyone to really talk to. It's like, you have to do this quickly. And the fourth thing is, it would have been over. So that's the moment. Now, will I ever forget that moment? No. So what happened was, after that happened, I started to talk about it, because I speak a lot all over, usually to like big crowds like this. And so I speak all over, and I would tell people also, I have an idea about this Kansipur. And then I would start to talk about it, and I tell them this story, and then I tell them one or two other stories, and people would always come over to me. You know what happened to me? Let me tell you my story. And over the years, I would just kind of write down the stories and put them together, and then after a few years, I had like a really nice collection of stories. I said, well, maybe I should write a book about this. This is a good idea. And so I called Feldheim publishers. I tell them, listen, I have a manuscript. Maybe you would like to take a look at it. Okay, we'll take a look at it. But, we get so many, I said, okay, listen, if it's not any good, it's not any good. I'm not making a living out of this thing. So anyway, I send them the manuscript. And Yitzhak Feldheim told me I should call him on Monday. I call him on Monday. He says, well, I didn't read it. I said, okay, you didn't read it? He said, but my wife read it. I was sitting on my counter. She read it. She said, you better publish this book. And that's how the book got published. And that's what happened with the book, the Kansipur book. It came out, obviously, it was, Jewish books don't sell that well. It sold very well. And people started reading it. People started calling me and telling me all kinds of stories. And I want to read you a quote from the book that I put in there, because I think I love it. It's not from the Adam Gadol. It's not from a great Jewish leader. It's from a great orator, Sir Winston Churchill. This is what he said. To each there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour. So sometimes it is your finest hour. And I know it's true, because I keep hearing from people all the time. Now, I have obviously hundreds of stories, and I have the greatest story about the boy from Argentina. And I know that you probably read the story because I told you to read it. It's an amazing story about a boy from Argentina. If you buy the book, you get the book, you'll see it's incredible. But I'm not going to tell that story tonight, because I want to tell some other stories, because sometimes I'm inspired myself. Sometimes when people call me, I can say to myself, wow. So I'll tell you a story. Just happened last week. Last week, a lady calls me. She said, I read your book. I've heard you speak. Let me tell you what happened to me. We live in Queens, New York. I was driving with my husband. We were going shopping to look for antiques. We like antiques. And we were in Ridgewood, Queens. It's a place where there are a lot of cemeteries nearby and so on. And she was driving in a car with her husband. And all of a sudden, she sees a hearse with the name Schwartz Brothers on it. And guess what? Next to it, in the back of it, there was only one car. And she said to her husband, wow, isn't that sad? Could you imagine only one person going to someone's levaya? Let's go. The husband said, are you crazy? What are you doing? We're going shopping. What are you doing here? He says, no, look, we're here. We're here in this moment. Why are we here in this moment when this hearse is right next to us? I read this book from this crazy guy, Steve Savitsky. This could be a Kansi moment for us, Why are we here? And so she said to the husband, follow the car. And they go, and they follow the car all the way to the cemetery. They come to the cemetery. She gets out of the car. The lady who was in the first car, the only car, comes out. And she looks at her, and she says, what are you doing here? Who are you? She says, oh, I'm just a regular person, but I saw there was a funeral, and I saw that there was no one else. And how could I let someone go to a funeral when there's only one car? She says, well, listen, happens to be, by the way, that there are 5 cars, not a lot, but they all got stuck on a red light, and so therefore they'll be here in about a minute. But I can't believe you're here. And she said, it's so interesting because this woman happened to be an Orthodox Jew. And she said to the woman who was in the car, she said, none of my relatives are religious at all. It would be so nice if they could see what a person does who's a Torah Jew. It'll be a wonderful thing. Do you mind staying? She said, no, of course. And so she stayed. Everyone came. And then she said to them, I want you to meet somebody who I don't know. I've never seen this person in my life. But this person said, they were driving along and they said, why did God put me in this place at this time? Why am I here? Obviously, there's a reason. And so therefore, she said, she came to the funeral. And the husband came out and the people all came over. And then it turned out that the person who was Levaya, he was a doctor. And he had invented the glucometer, which, where they do the glucose testing, the little blood, and they figure out your number. And she was a nurse. And she said, this lady said, I use it every day in the hospital for this person who developed it. And they stayed for the funeral. And she said like this is how she ended it. She said to me, and now we speak to each other every Erev Shabbos. We reach each other a good Shabbos. That's a Kansi moment. You understand? Because what was she doing there? Well, I wrote the book. I didn't write the book because it's just a bunch of nice stories. I wrote the book because there's a message. And what a great message it is before Yom Kippur. That if you just open your eyes and you look around, Chesed surrounds you every minute of every day if you know how to find it. And that's why God gave you the mitzvah. He said to you, listen, ki yikarei, you can't prepare for it. And the things you can't prepare for are going to be the best things in your whole life. That's the whole idea. So, why don't I tell you another story? After I wrote the book, I had been active in one of the organizations I've been involved in. It's called Partners in Torah. Maybe some of you know it. And they wanted to do something nice for all the people who are the mentors. And so they wanted to give out the books. I said, you know what? I'll give you 100 books. We'll send it out to all the people. Let them get the book. The woman who was running it for Partners in Torah, her name is Mimi, and she says to me, I don't know anything about the book. I never read the book. I said, I'll send you a copy of the book. She calls me the next day. She says, Steve, I've got the most incredible Kansi moment to tell you. Let me tell you her story. It was really amazing. She lived in the Midwest. She was a teacher, a first grade teacher. She'd been teaching for over 25 years. It was open school night. Parents are coming. She's done this hundreds of times. This is maybe before Zoom or whatever, however they do it today, which is, more sophisticated. People would actually come, they talk to okay. This woman comes in, she's the last person. She didn't know anything about this lady, other than she knew that she came from Russia, and she knew that she had a hard life, but she didn't know anything really about her. And she comes in and she says to the lady, I want to tell you one thing about your son, Nikolai. Nikolai is the nicest boy we have in our class. Everybody loves him. He's a great student. Everybody wants to be with him. You should be so proud of him. And the woman looks at the teacher, Mimi, and she says, I can't control myself. Could you have some tissues? And she starts to cry hysterically. And finally, Mimi says, what's the matter? I just told you how great your son is, Nikolai. He's wonderful. She said, you don't know, I've had such a hard life. Says, I came here, my husband and I met here. We both were from Russia. We worked so hard. We got an education. We started a business. Thing was going great. Everything was wonderful. And then my husband got sick about 2 years ago. And he had cancer. And we had to use up all of our savings. Our business really dissipated completely. I lost almost everything. And I had to sell my house and move into an apartment. And she said, and now, on top of all of that, I just got a bill for $75,000 from someone who had lent us money. I had signed for it. And now the person said, I want the money back. I don't have a penny to my name, let alone $75,000. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I could do for my kids. I am going to be on the street. And you know, that moment, this Mimi said to her, you don't have to worry. It's my katsi per moment. I'll raise the money for you. I've done it so many times. Don't worry about it. The woman said, what? She says, listen, I've been teaching for 25 years. I've had every kind of situation you could possibly think of. I'm telling you now that it's not going to be a problem. I've done this so many times. I will raise the money. When do you need it? 2 weeks? 2 weeks, not a problem. I'll give you the $75,000. You'll get it. Don't worry. The woman couldn't believe it. She came, she gave her a big hug and a kiss. She had a smile on her face. And she said, just go home. Take care of Nikolai. Take care of your other daughter. Not a problem. The woman left, leave the classroom, at which point Nimi became totally hysterical because she had no idea what to do. She has no idea. And she said, what did I do? How did I? Anyway, she comes home, she tells her husband. Husband says, you better tell her right away, call her up right now and tell her that you can't do this. She said, but if you saw her face that moment I had to say something. Husband said, well, I don't know what you're going to do. So what did Mimi do? She went to see the best fundraiser in town. Come on, who? Chabad. Who else? Okay? She went to see the Chabad rabbi in her town, and she said, listen, this is what I did. I had this moment. I felt I had to do something. Could you help me raise the money? He said, no, I can't help you raise the money. But what I'll do for you is I'll give you the list 50 of the richest people in town. And these people give money to a lot of causes. I'll give you their home address. Don't ever say that I told them anything, but I'll give you their names and their address. She gets it. Every night, after school, she gets dressed nicely, and she goes to these people's houses and she rings the bell. You know what it's like to ring the bell? If you ever ask for money in a regular way, it's not easy. Imagine going to someone's house as a stranger, ringing the bell, not knowing what's on the other side, what kind of reception she's going to get. And they opened the door and she said, listen, I'm a teacher. Let me tell you what happened. This woman, could you give me $5,000 or $10,000 the most? I'm going to other people. And she went from door to door. And at the end of the 2 weeks, she raised the $75,000. And she gave this lady the money. And that was the end of the story. A few years later, first of all, after that year, Mimi decided to go into the insurance business with her husband. She left teaching. Maybe 4 or 5 years go by. And they have, unfortunately, a special needs kid. They live in the Midwest, and the amount of services that they can get are not that good. So she decided they have to move to New York. But the difference in prices between a house where they were and New York was astronomical. They said they're working on a deal, a very big deal in insurance, and if the deal can get done, then they can move to New York. She told her mother-in-law was one of these people who believe in brachas and rebbes and all kind of stuff, and the mother-in-law said, I know a makubal, I know someone who's coming to town. I've gone to him before. Go to him for a bracha. Go to him for a bracha. He'll give you a bracha. And so she flew to New York. She came. They got her an appointment. And she came to meet this Rebbe. And she tells him the whole story, how she is trying to raise money, how she has to get a big business deal. Her kid is special needs kids. They want to come to New York. And she wants to get a bracha that the deal will go through. The Rebbe looks at her. Says, okay, let me think. And he closes his eyes. And then he says to her, I'm going to give you the bracha. He said, I'm going to give you the bracha. But you don't need it. She said, what do you mean? Was there ever anybody in your life named Nikolai? She says, yeah, about 5, 6 years ago, was a boy in my, he said, I don't know what you did, but whatever you did, you got Olam Haba. You don't need my bracha. You have all the brachas you're ever going to need. She said, really? And she said, I never met him. I never told him the story. I never told him anything about Nikolai. And that's what happened. And she moved to New York. An incredible Kansi moment. But that moment was the moment. Now you think she's ever going to forget that moment in her life? Never. She'll never forget that moment in her life. And that's the reason I wrote the book. Because those moments, listen, when the Torah tells you, L'man yitav lach, you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be good for you. The Torah doesn't tell you that about almost every other mitzvah, kibbutz avim, but it doesn't tell you that about other mitzvahs. But it tells you this about this mitzvah, because indeed it's true. If you feel that way, that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to end with 2 very simple things. One is in the first book. The last story in the book is about a woman who was in a shul that I was in Riverdale, New York. I'm giving my speech, and I'm really into it. I love to get into the speech, and she's there, and she's watching, and she's listening, and she's so excited about the speech. And when she comes over to me after the davening was over, I knew she had the greatest Kansi story in the whole world. I said, I can't wait. What's your story? She said, my story is simple. I wish you were here last week. I said, why? She said, I want to tell you what happened to me yesterday. Erev Shabbos, let me tell you what happened. I was in the supermarket. I was there, and I was behind a woman, a nice woman, dressed nicely. She had maybe 5 items in her shopping cart, some milk, some juice, eggs, not a lot. And she comes to the counter, and I see the next thing, she's arguing with the person behind the counter, the cashier. They're going through a big argument. Finally, the manager comes, and they start arguing. Finally, she runs out of the store, and she leaves the 5 items on the counter. I came, it was my turn, and I said, what happened? They said, well, we know this lady. She's a lovely lady. She comes here all the time, but she's on food stamps. Today's the 31st of the month. She thought it was the 1st. She's already used up all of her allocations. So we told her, I'm sorry, we can't help you. And so she ran out of the store. She said, had I heard your speech last week, the Kansi moment, what would you have done? You would have run right up to the counter. You would have said, thank you, God, for giving me an opportunity for $20 or $25 to do a chesed to someone, to be Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, to feel good about yourself. She said, but I missed the opportunity, and I'm never going to get it back again. Never, ever will I get it back again. That was the story I put in the last story. And then when I finished the second book, I put in a different thing that happened. And this happened, and you could identify with it, because we're in Woodmere now, for people who are listening. The people in the audience will live in this community. I davened last year, Yom Kippur, exactly a year ago in the Young Israel Woodmere. It's a very large shul with thousands of people. Davening's over. We're doing al chetz all day, asking Hashem for bakashas and rachamim. I walk out of the shul, and in the back of the parking lot, there's a woman, an elderly woman in a wheelchair, sitting in the corner of the parking lot. It's dark. I walk out, and look, what is she doing here? I walk over to her, and I said to her, could I help you? Could I do something for you? She said, no, I'm fine. I'm great. My husband's saying Kiddush Levana. Don't worry. It's not a problem. She said, but I want to ask you one question. You're only the second person who came over to me. She said, there were 1,000 people who left this shul. Only 2 people came over to ask me, could I help you? Why is that? Because if you're not in it, you don't win it. If you don't open your eyes to Chesed, you'll never have the opportunity. And it's the greatest opportunity in the whole world. And it's an incredible, incredible message. And that's why sometimes when people read my book and they tell me, oh, I love this story, I said, I don't want you to love any story. I said, I want you to love the message. Forget the stories. The stories are great, but the message is what's most important. Open your eyes, look around, and ask yourself every single day, why am I here? Why am I in this shul today? Why did I go to the supermarket last night? Why did I drive down this street? Why did I take this plane? Hashem has a way of putting us in the right place at the right time for the right reason. And if we take advantage of that, our eyes open up and Chesed the world becomes a world of chesed. What a great message for Yom Kippur. What a great message for the Yom and the Royim. So Am Yetz Hashem this year, we should all have a year of chesed. We should have a year of bracha and hatzlacha. And Am Yetz Hashem, some of you will find a Kanzi moment. You'll let me know about it. And hopefully you'll be in my next